Arguments over money often lead to divorce, but now lower property values and dwindling retirement savings are keeping couples together. Joining us to talk about this is Maureen Nacey, a family law attorney with Gawthrop Greenwood. Thanks for being here.
Hi, Tracy. It's a pleasure.
So let's talk about the two things that are keeping people from saying let's go towards divorce. It's the economy, well, three things. It's the economy, it's lower retirement savings, and it's the housing value. So you can't just say, we'll sell the family home and divide the proceeds. Talk about how that's all impacting people.
Well, in a lot of family law cases, the marital residence and the investment accounts are the majority of the assets. So it's pretty difficult to get a handle on what your estate is really worth in this volatile economy.
So then people say, well, then what do we do, right? I mean, do people sit down and say, economically, we can't afford to divorce? Is that what people are sort of sitting across the table looking at each other saying, we don't want to be together anymore, but none of this makes sense?
There are some nationwide statistics that indicate divorce is down in this economy as a consequence of the decline in the housing market. It tends to lead to people living in the same residence for a longer period of time, which you can imagine is pretty stressful.
All of this seems pretty stressful for a couple who, not that divorce isn't stressful enough, but then you add all of these layers of the economic impact.
Exactly. Divorce can be one of the most emotional experiences of someone's life. And when you add the economic turmoil, it can lead to even more anxiety, which can often result in depression or abuse or further negative consequences on the children.
All right, so what can couples do? They're sitting there and they're saying, we're struggling, we need to divorce. What can we do to lower the cost of getting a divorce, of getting to that point, of separating everything?
Well, there are some things that you can do to take control of your own life. And the first thing I would suggest is being proactive. This is a really good time to take an inventory of your assets and your liabilities. You have to have an understanding really of what you own and what it's worth. It's a great time to maybe meet with some professionals. It's a good idea to meet with a financial planner maybe to talk about a budget going forward and even a budget to meet your short-term needs. If you're going to consider selling the marital residence, you should meet with a real estate professional to talk about how to get the maximum value for your home possible. So far as the children, the court is going to be guided by the best interests of the children. Mm-hmm. So to the extent that you can work with maybe a counselor or a therapist and talk about how you can help protect the children and maybe work together to co-parent in a positive way, that can reduce your litigation expenses.
And then what about mediation? That's an alternative too that might be less expensive than litigation?
It is. Mediation is a voluntary process by which both parties would meet with somebody who's not going to represent either individual in a legal capacity, but you can help control what happens to your life a little better maybe by going through the mediation process.
But in the same way, you should go in there saying, okay, we have all of our finances, which I think whether you're heading towards divorce or not, I think many families don't have it all laid out. Here's what our assets, here's our income, here's our debt. You should have that all ready before you go in to either see a lawyer or to mediation, right?
Exactly. This is a time to educate yourself and take this personal inventory and know what you owe, what you own. And maybe it's a good time too to take a look at maybe your working skills and maybe you need to revamp your skill set to enter the workplace.
Have you seen people who have come in and said, this is what we want, but we don't even know the first thing about dividing it up because there's so much debt and we don't know if we could sell our house?
Yeah, unfortunately, as the housing market continues to decline, that can lead to the house being on the market for longer periods of time. It could result in less proceeds. And unfortunately, with so many houses where the debt is greater than the value, it can lead to a couple actually having to bring money to the settlement table, which is going to deplete already strained financial resources.
Well, again, the best advice, get everything out in order and then figure out what you can do from there, right?
Exactly.
Great. Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.